The Battle of the Border. Montclair State is playing in Ottawa, Ontario this Friday, May 16th, against the Ottawa Sooners, who play in the Ontario Football Conference of the Canadian Junior Football League, the CJFL, if you will. That is the appropriate abbreviation. This is a really neat deal. Battle of the Border is such a cool way of kind of tying this in. It's something that's happening this week. And, you know, a lot of times when you go over and play this quote-unquote international type of competition, I think the stigma is that it's more for the experience, not so much for the football, and that the teams you're playing are usually not very good. This is a team and a program that sent a long list of alumni to the CFL. They got a tradition going back to 1960 with multiple national championships over there in that CJFL. And I'm hoping it makes for great competition for the Red Hawks and company. That should be a really fun game to follow along with. The head coach from Montclair, Mike Palazzo, says student-athlete experience is forefront in making something like this happen. He says half his team has never left the country. Half his roster has never been outside the United States. So even though you could say it's just Canada, this is a very unique experience for a bunch of student athletes that otherwise would have never had an opportunity to go and do something like this, let alone to play football on top of that. And we talked with Coach Larson earlier. They get an extra 10 practices in their spring semester, which is obviously a massive advantage when it comes to a game like this, but when you go to the D3 regular season in the fall and you've had 10 opportunities to get better in the spring and to implement some of that schematics and some of those, cultural core value type of things and get people in different situations, just having more time on the field, it's huge. I think it can't be overstated, and it's a pretty obvious advantage when you get 10 extra practices. On top of that, MSU or Montclair State, they graduated 43 seniors last year. 43 seniors. So obviously, you got a lot of guys in new positions, a lot of underclassmen that need to step up and have very big years for this Red Hawk team. And that makes these practices a huge developmental portion of the spring for this Red Hawk team, because you got all these guys that need to get more and more reps. And of course, practice is great, but you do it in an actual game setting in the spring. That's something that just, you can't match up to that, right? Division IIs, we started to see it with the spring games. Now the D2 teams are able to have and hold against other Division II competition. This is probably the next best thing if you're a Division III school and you want to get some of that game-like competition and snaps in the spring. This is the field that they're playing at. It's called GG's Field, and you guessed it, it's home of the Ottawa GGs. Just a really cool setup, though, actually. Like, really underrated setup right here on, I don't know what river this is, but it's right on the river, got the highway on the other side, not as much of a cool deal, but a nice grandstand. Of course, the end zones, because it is like CFL-type rules and regulations, very, very different. Goalposts right in the middle, got those weird dimensions, but absolutely love the setup here. I think it's a really, really neat place. Here's more of a ground view field, got the big grandstand ahead of the river. And then one other thing you'll notice is a scoreboard, but this last picture is very interesting. And it is interesting because this is the same facility. It's fitted with a dome for use in the winter months. This is the first time I've seen that. Of course, I've seen domes like this, like kind of temporary, almost inflatable looking type domes across the country. I don't know if I've ever seen one that goes up over an existing football field during the winter months. I feel like there's usually a separate facility nearby that athletes would go and train at. This is probably a first for me. I mean, let me know if other teams are doing this across the country, high school, college, or otherwise. But when they put the dome up on their game field and then take it down on a yearly basis is very interesting to me. This is what they're doing up there in Ottawa. But some other information as far as the game goes, it will be 4-down football, but each team will have 12 players in the field at each time. So that's obviously a rule from up north there, and that's something that Montclair State and their coaching staff has had to adjust to, getting used to 12 guys on each side of the ball. So on defense, maybe that's an extra linebacker. On offense, do you add someone on the offensive front at the O-line spot? Do you bring in a couple multi-back packages or an extra tight end? You know, what do you do with that extra 12th man? Very, very interesting. And then my last note on this was, imagine adjusting to the motion and the pre-snap process of a CFL-style offense where you can have multiple guys moving at once. You got guys who basically get a running head start off the line of scrimmage, and you can motion vertically into your route tree and your route concept. That would have to be a massive adjustment for some of these defensive backs and some of these players in general for this Montclair State team. But the Battle of the Border, Montclair State going up to Ottawa. I think it's going to be a really exciting deal. Definitely we'll follow up on that and hopefully get someone from the team or the coaching staff on the show to fill us in on some of the info. But let's stay in D3 football. Our last guest conversation of the night, heading over to Grove City.